So can you see it now? Is the slide visible?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes.
Okay. So yes, what I was talking about that this while undergoing minimization, a protein removes all the bad clashes, and it sometimes removes the steric hindrance that are created by several groups or atoms, and through minimization you can avoid those, and after that a protein requires and reaches the global minima state, after which the protein structure does not change much. Okay, so that's the final structure that the protein attains, the whole minimized structure. And while doing it, so it has to fold through several local maxima, local minima until it reaches the global minima. Okay. So why it is important? Because when we model a particular protein, we are going to see that when we model a protein, the protein is not always at a particular well optimized state. Okay, the protein is not at a well optimized state, and we need to optimize the protein so that the structure you get is the minimized structure. Because without minimized structure you cannot find out the obviously you are trying to find out the protein structure, because you need to calculate the you need to find out the interaction that particular protein makes with other protein, either through docking, or you need to simulate the protein, right? So whatever you do, you require the minimized energy structure, because if the protein is not in a global minima, then what will happen? The protein structure will change, and that structure might not be the original structure of the protein that is present in your body. So to mimic your protein that is present inside the cell, the protein you must have that particular optimized structure. Okay. So generally there are actually various ways by which you can model a particular protein. Okay. Now, but there are several proteins. Now, when we say what is homology modeling, okay, when we say that we are going to model a protein, there are several ways of modeling. Okay, but let's talk about homology model. What's a homology modeling? What do you know, or what do you think homology means? What is homology?
Same function, different structure. Same structure, different function.
Same structure, different function. Okay, fine. So you mean that same structure, right? Same structure. Now that means that if two proteins, now according to the SAR relationship, the SAR relationship is the structure activity relationship, and according to SAR it tells that if two proteins share same function, or if two proteins share same structure, then they ought to have similar structure or similar function. Okay, so if two proteins share similar function, they ought to have similar structure, or if two proteins share similar structure, they ought to have similar kind of function. Okay, that's a SAR relationship, structure activity relationship. Now according to that, suppose what happens that suppose several proteins are characterized, both in case of yeast, in case of bacteria, in case of humans, and sometimes there are some proteins which share a homology with with a bacterial protein. Now if that particular protein structure is not solved either through extracrystallography or NMR structure or other structure, then what you have to do is you have to look at the structure of similar kind of proteins, if that particular protein has a different structure or not. And you remember I have shown you the RCSB PDB website.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so in that website, what's that? That's a particular database which houses all the solved structure of biomolecules. Now that biomolecules include the both protein and nucleic acid, but we are now focused on developing a protein structure. Okay, so obviously when you have a protein whose structure is solved and that particular protein is present in the RCSB PDB database, now suppose you have identified a new protein. Now that particular protein structure is not yet solved. Now if you need to solve that particular structure, obviously the server or the software that you will use to solve the structure, it will draw and it will try to draw the focus of those proteins which are present in the PDB website. It is going to see if any protein in the PDB website shares similar structure or similar sequence with the targeted or desired or the protein in question. If two proteins they share similar sequence, they ought to have similar function, and that's how the first way by which it solves the structure is a new fold target. Now in new fold target it means that the target that you have, it has a completely newer folds, a new sequence, a particular sequence or a particular fold which is not present in the any solved protein structure in the RCSB database. Now, what is the similarity between sequence and folds? Now, if you remember, do you know that not always all the protein, suppose you have a protein has multiple motifs in it, right? It has multiple motif, it has multiple fold. Now, when I say fold and when I say motif, it means that a particular fold means there is zinc finger fold. You have heard the name of these folds, right? The zinc finger motif. Huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what do these mean? What are these motifs? What are these motifs?
As I'm not clear about them, I have heard it.
Okay. So these are actually what should I say that now these are a structural motif. They have a common 3D structure, and these 3D structure they appear in a different wide range of molecules. Now these proteins, they might be unrelated evolutionary. They might be evolutionarily unrelated, or they might have a relationship, right? Now you don't know whether they have a relationship, they have a similar kind of relationship or not. Okay, now it actually depends upon your analysis. You have to analyze before you can say that these two proteins share evolutionary significance or evolutionary relationships. We're going to talk about that in later classes. Now these proteins, now these motifs, what are these motifs? Now several amino acid, when they are grouped together, they give rise to a certain well-known motif, a well-known 3D structure. These are the motifs. For example, the zinc finger motif. Okay, zinc finger motif. What is zinc finger motif? As the name suggests, that zinc finger motif is what? It has a role with binding with the zinc ions, right? It has a zinc ions, right? Now these zinc finger motifs, it is actually characterized because they have a coordination with one or more zinc ions. Okay, and in these zinc ions are really required to stabilize these folds. Without the presence of this Zn+2 ion, these particular folds are not stabilized. Okay, and it was actually first found in actually Xenopus laevis. It was actually found in Xenopus laevis. It's a African frog, and I actually forgot that they actually found this motif in a transcription factor of that particular animal. I forgot that what transcription factor it is, but you understand the motif. Okay, so now what is that? Now any zinc finger motif, they are going to have a similar kind of sequence. They're going to have a similar kind of sequence. Now when you upload a structure to deduce a structure, suppose you are uploading a particular sequence. Now when you have a protein, obviously for structural deduction, one thing that you require is the sequence, the amino acid sequence, right? Now suppose you have the amino acid sequence, you have uploaded the amino acid sequence in that particular software on the particular web server. Now that particular web server or that software, it is going to look into all the previously solved structure of the proteins in the RCSB PDB website, and then it is going to find out the sequence similarity. Now it does find the sequence similarity by sequence alignment. Okay, we're going to look at it and we're going to find out how to perform the sequence alignment and how to do that. We're going to look at those. So they actually take a look on those particular, they actually tries to find out the sequence similarity by the sequence alignment, and when they find a certain similarity, they say that this particular sequence, they share the same sequence. So that if they share the same sequence, that means according to SAR, they will share the same structure. So that particular fold is given a particular structure. Okay, so that particular fold A is given a particular structure. So like that, each area, a newer and newer structure is developed for each area. Okay, now but sometimes you are going to find a sequence which have no sequence similar to any of the solved structure of structural protein. So that in that case, that will be a new fold target. And when you have a new fold target, in a case or target which do not have any sequence similarity, now for that you can't perform homology modeling. For the proteins which share no sequence similarity, you have to perform ab initio modeling. We will talk about ab initio modeling. Okay, so you understand this particular thing? Is this part clear?
Yes, sir.
How a protein searches the homology? Okay, so one is the new fold target when you have no similar sequence similarity. Another is the homology part when you have a homology. Now homology, there are two heads. One is the easy homology and the hard homology. Now easy homology modeling means that means these two particular protein, there are some proteins in the PDB website or in the PDB database where you have a sequence or a homologous protein. For example, name two homologous protein. Name two homologous protein, Shruti. A protein which is really present and regulates our blood sugar or our glycolysis. Hexokinase and glucokinase, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what happens? Suppose the hexokinase structure is well known. Now obviously the glucokinase structure is also well known. But suppose the hexokinase structure is well known and you came across another protein called glucokinase. Upon sequence similarity, sequence alignment, you find that this particular protein is obviously, it's a homologous protein. These two proteins share almost 80% of sequence similarity. So that means these two are homologous protein. Now of course the protein, the glucokinase structure, since they both perform similar function and they have similar sequence, obviously the structure is going to be same. Now in that case it's going to be easy homologous protein. It is going to be easy homology. Okay. Because they share 100%, if not 100%, approximately 80 to 90% of homology. Then predicting the structure of those proteins becomes much easier. Another thing is the hard homology. Now in this particular case, the protein that you are using, they might share sequence similarity, but it is not 80% or 90%. They have a distant relationship. And suppose you have a cousin, you have a distant cousin. Now you two might look similar, but it's not that you are not going to look exactly similar, right? Now if you talk about a very near homologous protein, I mean it's not a distant relative, it's a very near one. Suppose you and your brother, you two are going to look like each other because you two are much more connected to one another than your cousins. So you are going to have much more sequence similarity. So that was an easy homologous modeling, and then there is the hard homology modeling. In this particular case, you have a distant relationship. Now the homology is not going to be 80 or 90%, but it might be less than 60%, maybe 40%, not even 40, maybe 40, 50%. Okay. Now if it is less than 50%, then we don't call it a homologous protein. Though we term it as a homology modeling, but the two proteins, we prefer to say that they don't share any homology. If it is less than 50% or less than 40%. Okay. And then there are some proteins for which you have the similar fold. They don't share the sequence similarity. They don't share the same sequence, but they have a similar fold, and that is called the fold recognition target. Okay, they have a similar fold in PDB. Now, how to characterize? Now, how do these web servers? How do these web servers or softwares? They predict the correct sequence. How do they predict that this particular motif is going to have this particular structure? For example, if I upload a particular, suppose I'm uploading a structure like this. I'm uploading a primary structure. This is the sequence. I'm uploading a sequence. Now, how the hell a particular web server or software going to predict whether this particular sequence is going to fold in an alpha helix form or in a beta sheet form? How are they going to predict? There are some ways to predict, and by which? Because by seeing the tendency or the nature of the amino acid. Now there are few amino acids Generally they are called as malic, M-A-L-E-K. Okay, malic. Just give me a minute. Okay, just. Yes. So the amino acid malic. Malic is the short form. It's a 1-letter code of each amino acid. That is methionine, alanine, leucine, glutamate, and lysine. Now this malic amino acid, whenever you have a sequence that is rich in this 5 amino acid, then make sure that particular stretch is going to form a alpha helix structure, because these amino acids, they have a propensity to form alpha helix structure. Okay, so while scanning the whole protein sequence, a web server or a software, when it comes across a particular sequence which is rich in these 5 amino acids, then it is going to assign the alpha helix structure to those particular fold. Okay, now why? Because of their chemical property, because they can form hydrogen bond. Now for alpha helix formation, hydrogen bond between I to I plus 3 and I to I plus 4 is very important. It's very important that the amino acid I amino acid forms an alpha hydrogen bond with the I plus 3rd amino acid or I plus 4th amino acid. So you can see I to I plus 3 or I to I plus 4 connection in an alpha helix. So whenever you have this amino acid, they have the tendency to form this hydrogen bond. So they can actually form alpha helix. Whereas if you see glycine and proline, they are known as helix breaker. Why? Because the proline, it cannot, because of its structure, because of its side chain, it cannot donate an amide hydrogen. Okay, and obviously amide hydrogen bond is highly required for hydrogen bond formation. And if you simply think of the structure of proline, you see that proline doesn't have a free amide bond, right? And due to the lack of that free amide bond, it cannot form a hydrogen bond. Okay, and whereas not only that, the glycine, the proline also fails to move, it fails to form a, it has to bend. Okay, for forming of alpha helix, any amino acid, they have to form a bend. Now proline and glycine, due to their structural rigidity, they fail to form that bend, and that's why they cannot form alpha helix. Rather, whenever they are present, they break the alpha helix, they break the alpha, therefore they are known as helix breaker. Okay, same thing goes for glycine also. The glycine is real, glycine has it is highly flexible molecule, and due to its conformation and flexibility, it simply breaks up that particular helical structure. Okay, so generally you can see that proline and glycine are found either at the start of an alpha helix or at an end of the alpha helix, because they are the helix breakers. So generally they are if they are present at the end, then they are the last one and that particular alpha helix. Or if it's a helix, if they are going to form helix, then they are going to be the first amino acid, and just the second amino acid after proline or glycine, they are going to start forming that alpha helix structure after that particular thing. And the similar thing happens for the beta sheet structure also. Any amino acid which have a beta branching, that means threonine, valine, isoleucine, and apart from that there is tyrosine, phenylalanine, tryptophan. These amino acid, they form the beta sheet. They form beta sheet. So whenever during scanning, if the particular software or server come across this particular amino acid, and if this particular amino acid are rich in a particular fold, it automatically assigns a alpha helix structure to that particular fold. Okay, and in this particular case also helix acts as a beta sheet breaker for the same reason, and therefore they don't participate in beta sheet formation or anything. Okay, and generally these by this nature, by scanning the amino acid and the presence of these amino acid, the server actually assigns a particular structure. Okay, now so how does a particular protein structure prediction occurs? So is it clear till this part?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so now we'll talk about in detail that how a structure is actually calculated. Now generally for any protein structure prediction there are 4 stages, as you can see in the slide. The first stage is actually the backbone prediction, then you have the loop modeling, side chain packing, and structural packing. Now the backbone prediction is the most important part, because by the virtue of backbone only you can predict whether the particular structure is alpha helix or beta sheet, right? By the virtue of the backbone only, because if the backbone is actually not what happens, because first you have to have your backbone, because suppose you are drawing a man, okay, you are drawing a human, okay, so whenever you're trying to draw a human, you obviously have to draw the main backbone support, right? The main backbone support is required, because if that particular backbone support is not made, you cannot base your structure on anything. And what is backbone? By backbone I mean the CONH bond. Okay, the CONH. It actually first joins the CONH and it tries to find out the basic backbone structure, whether it is a alpha helix structure or that particular thing has a beta sheet structure. Or to be more specific, does it what is the type of fold that particular molecule has? Is it a zinc finger fold or is it some other kind of fold? Okay, now if it is a DNA binding motif, then obviously it is going to have a different kind of structure. If it has a protein binding motif, then it is going to have a different kind of structure. Now similarly, different kind of motifs and different according to the structure and function of a particular motif, different structures are assigned to that particular protein. Okay. Now the backbone prediction, there are 3 methods for backbone prediction. One is the ab initio prediction, then you have homology, then you have protein threading. Now ab initio method means that, ab initio name means that from scratch, when you have nothing, you only have the protein structure. Suppose you have a new protein, a protein whose newer type of protein whose structure is not solved. Okay, it's a very new kind of protein. Suppose that particular protein is isolated from a organism found in Mars. Now of course that particular organism is not going to have any structural similarity to us, any of us. Of course that is going to be a new type of fold. Now in that particular case, the server is going to adopt the ab initio prediction. Why ab initio? Because that particular protein does not have any homology to any of the type of protein. So it has to use the ab initio prediction. Now what is ab initio prediction? Ab initio prediction means only by looking at the chemical and physical property of the amino acid, the server is going to predict the structure. Only by taking a look into the structure, physical and chemical structure of the amino acid, the server is going to predict the structure. Okay. The second is the homology modeling. We have talked about homology modeling. If 2 proteins they share homology by the virtue of that. And next we have the protein threading. The protein threading, it is a huge protein threading. I'm going to discuss protein threading in detail later on. Okay. First, after we discuss the ab initio and homology modeling, we will discuss the protein threading. We will take a look into that particular thing after that. So by that the backbone is predicted. Now after that, next thing comes is the loop modeling. Now why loop modeling? Now can you say what is the structure of the loops? Shruti? What kind of structures are present in the loops?
I don't know, sir.
Don't know. Okay, the loops have no structure. They don't have any structure at all. They might have multiple different type of structure. They don't have a specific structure, and that's why it is really important to loop the very important to model the loops. Why? Because there are no specific models for loop. The loop can assume any type of structure. It's really very difficult to structure the loops, but the loops are really important. Why? Because there are some kind of interactions that are only possible by loops. The loops they don't have a structure. Now what element should form the loops? Now generally each amino acid have a B factor value. Okay, they have a B factor value. Now what is B factor? B factor actually denotes how much amino acid is flexible. How much flexible is your amino acid? For example, suppose you have a loop and the particular loop is suppose you have an amino acid and the B value of that, or the B factor of that particular amino acid is 1. Another amino acid has a B factor of 4. That means obviously the amino acid which has a high B factor is going to be highly fluctuating amino acid. That means it is not going to have a stable structure. It's going to fluctuate a lot. That means that amino acid moves a lot. Now whenever a particular amino acid moves a lot, it will fail to have a very stable structure, because for either for helix or beta sheet you have to have a proper structure, right? For example, when we are running, when we are playing, do we have a proper structure? Do we maintain a proper body posture? No, we don't have a proper body posture because we are moving a lot. We are not stabilized at a particular structure. But when we are sleeping, when we are lying on bed, when we are sleeping, we have a proper structure, at least for some time being, because we don't move much, right? We don't move much, and that's why the artist who develops or draws a portrait, they ask you to stand still or sit still, because if you move a lot they can't gather your picture, right? And the same thing happens for loop also. If a particular amino acid has a high B factor, that means it is fluctuating a lot, it is moving a lot. At one point it is at x1 y1 z1 plane, and the next second it is at x2 y2 z2 plane, and then again at the next second is at x3 y3 z3 plane. So it doesn't have a proper structure, it is not a stable molecule. So it's very difficult to stabilize and model the loops. So that's the next thing that the particular structure or the server or software does, is to predict and to model the loops. Now after that it helps you with the sidechain packing. Now what is sidechain packing? Sidechain packing means any amino acid, they have a side chain, right? Now when you fold the backbone, you are using the CONH bond. You are not taking into account the R group, right? That means the side chain. You are not taking into account the side chains. So how the side chain will lie? Will the side chain protrude outside, or will the side chain protrude inside the protein? So that's a big question, and it needs to be answered, because of the effect of side chain, there are the protein behaves differently. Because if you are designing a ligand, it actually depends upon what is the docking site that you are using for that ligand. Is the ligand binding to the side chain, or is it binding to a proper fold, or it's binding to a proper motif? If it is binding to the side chain, then the side chain needs to protrude outside, because if that particular side chain is actually protrudes inside and you have developed a ligand that can bind to the side chain, then obviously inside your body that particular ligand will fail to find that particular side chain, and in that case there would be no interaction between that particular ligand and the particular protein. So it's really important to see the side chain packing because of these interactions, because the side chains also create several hydrogen bonds. Not only hydrogen bonds, they also participate in electrostatic interactions and van der Waals interaction, and those interactions are actually required for protein binding, protein DNA interaction, and not even that, they are also required for protein signaling. Okay, there are several molecules that actually acts as a signal peptide for a particular protein. The signal peptide actually works if that particular protein will predicts the location of that particular protein. Okay, so in that case the side chains are really important for signal peptide, and there are several papers for that also. You can simply take a look. And after all those packing, the backbone prediction, loop modeling, and sidechain packing, the whole structure is then refined. The structure refinement means the particular protein is then minimized to reach a global minima. Okay, the protein is actually moved a lot to reach the global minima, and after the protein is reached the global minima, the server or software shows you the result that yes, we have calculated and predicted the structure of this particular protein, and this is the final structure of the protein. Did you get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so any question till this part, or anything that you need to ask?
So can you explain side chain packaging again?
Yeah, sure. See, when you let me show you, it will be better if I show you a structure. Okay, so this is the structure of a protein. Okay, now see this particular protein. This particular protein is a dimer, and it actually this is a zinc. Okay, this is a zinc, and this particular molecule actually is it's a zinc finger motif. So this particular molecule is actually it coordinates with several amino acid. Now just take a look. Wait a minute. Now see. Now in this particular case, now see. Okay, now see in this particular case, these 4 amino acid, they are actually making a coordination bond with the zinc ion. Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
These 4 amino acids are making a zinc coordination with this particular zinc atom. Now suppose how can these amino acids make a coordination with the zinc atom? Because the amino acid, now sees by what is the element with which they are making the coordination? With this R group, right? This is a histidine, this is a histidine, this is a histidine, and you see with the R groups they are making the connection coordination, right? Now suppose while predicting the structure, suppose I predict that this R group will protrude this side. Suppose this R group will protrude this side. It now, since it is pointing towards zinc ion, and suppose if this is the structure, then this is the left side. Now suppose if I predict that this histidine will look at the right side, then can this particular histidine make a coordination bond with zinc?
No,
It can't. So this is the side chain packaging. How are you going to see to what end this particular side chains are protruding to? Where are you placing the side chains? To which directions the particular side chains are facing? What is the main focus of these side chains? Because if these 4 amino acids are not present in this particular location, then they cannot coordinate with this zinc ion. And if they look other hand or the other way, then this particular coordination won't be satisfied. So this is the side chain packaging, and this is true not in I am giving example with the zinc coordination, but this is true with any cases. For example, suppose in this particular case, suppose this particular amino acid is facing outside. Okay, let me just check. This is, suppose this is not facing, this is facing inside. Suppose this amino acid is facing outside. Okay, now since this amino acid is facing outside, suppose if this amino acid is facing outside, so if this particular group makes an interaction with another protein, then of course these are the amino acids through which the connection will be made. If there are no such amino acid, or if there are no such side chains that are facing this end, can the interaction form? It can't. So that's why the packaging and the location of these side chains is really important. Do you understand now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's the sidechain package. Okay, so now we will talk about the ab initio modeling. Okay, okay. So as the name suggests, and I have told you that sidechain package ab initio modeling means starting from scratch. Okay, that means a particular case in which you have no sequence similarity. You have no sequence similarity. This particular protein is all in its own. It doesn't have any similarity with anything. And if this particular model they don't have any similarity with anything, then of course they are not going to form a bond with anything. Okay, they're not going to form a bond with anything. Not bond, they're not going to form a, what should I say, structure, because they don't have any homology with anything. So you can't use that particular molecule, or you can't use any other structure to draw the structure of this protein. For example, for a child, what we do, if there are some child, what we do, we simply give them a picture, we show them a picture, and we ask them to draw like this one. Suppose they need to draw an elephant, so we simply show them a picture of elephant, and we ask them to draw an elephant like this. The elephant looks like that. But suppose you have discovered a new animal, and that particular animal looks nothing like all the animals that are present. Now in that particular case, you have no animal to look at and draw the picture, right? You have to draw all on its own, and that is the ab initio modeling. All we are giving you is the sequence, and the molecule is going to use the server, the software is going to use all its physical and chemical property of the amino acid to derive a structure. Acha, now up till this point, what do you think is the best way to derive a structure? The most authentic way to design us or predict a structure of a protein? The ab initio method or the homology method?
Homology.
Homology method? No, it's not true. The ab initio method is the best method.
Okay.
But why don't we use ab initio method? Because our discovery and our science has not made that kind of progress that we can develop a structure all on its own. Because just simply think of our proteins, the protein that is present in our body. They don't even look at any does they look at other protein while folding? No, right? They fold all on their own and only on the basis of the structure of the, only on the basis of the sequence of the protein, right? A protein which folds in our body, only what do they have? They only have the sequence, and based upon the sequence they folds inside our body. And but why do they acquire the exact setup or exact structure? Because the force that they use, not only the hydrogen bond but also the disulfide bond, the electrostatic interaction, the van der Waals interaction, any kind of interaction that is most up to date. But still now people, while performing the modeling, how does a server actually models your protein? We have an algorithm, right? And in that particular algorithm we have feeded all the mathematical equation of a particular force, all the mathematical equation. We have feeded it the equation of van der Waals force, we have feeded it the equation of electrostatic interaction, we have feeded it the interaction of the hydrogen bond interaction, and every interactions. But the mathematical equation that we have developed, it is not foolproof. And as the research progresses on, more and more people they are finding out more and more novel nature or other properties of a particular interaction, and then they are developing much more accurate mathematical representation or mathematical equation that represent that particular equation much more accurately. And as the mathematical equations gets updated, the algorithm gets updated. At the day when we can actually fully we can gather an equation that mimics that particular force 100%, then we can actually predict the sequence with 100% accuracy, or predict a structure with 100% accuracy. And till that point, till that time, we can actually have that we have to use the homology model as the best source of modeling. But nonetheless, the ab initio modeling is the best method for structure prediction, but it is actually the drawback of our own algorithm that we can't use ab initio method for 100% structural accuracy. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what do they do in ab initio method? In ab initio method, they actually look at the protein fold, and they tries to find out the amino acid that are present. For example, they tries to find out the malic amino acid, and if a stretch is rich in malic, they simply give it a alpha helix fold. If a particular sequence is rich in tryptophan, threonine, phenylalanine and such amino acid, then they give that particular fold a beta sheet fold. Now like that, they actually predict the structure, and they give that particular fold a structural name. Okay, now this particular method was actually developed by Anfinsen, and he actually developed this particular method based upon the thermodynamic properties of amino acid. Okay, and using that, he has predicted that if a particular amino, if you simply fold a particular stretch into alpha helix, then that particular alpha helix is going to modulate the neighboring atoms. It's going to modulate the structure of the neighboring amino acid. It is going to force the other neighboring amino acid to acquire a much more authentic structure, and like that, they actually propose the whole structure of that whole amino acid. And they actually developed this thermodynamic hypothesis. And what is that hypothesis? The hypothesis is this one: that under any particular structure, any proper structure, they actually attain the global free energy minimum. Okay, now under a given set of condition. Now obviously, what is the condition? The condition is that the particular, you have to maintain the proper pH, you have to maintain the proper temperature of that particular protein in which it is highly active. Okay, and you have to have that proper amino acid sequence. Okay, and but only based upon that, how can you assume a structure? Because see, this amino acid, they are a chemical, right? They are chemical. So whenever you have a chemical moiety like amino acid, though it's a biomolecule, but since though it's a chemical, they have a proper set of physical and chemical properties. Now they are not going to deviate away from their chemical properties, right? They're going to have a fixed chemical property. And if you can assign, and if you can maintain a proper chemical environment, then they are going to assume their own structure in that particular chemical setup. So that is the basis of this ab initio modeling. But as I've told you, since the mathematical equations of these interactions are not that updated, and people are still researching on these equations to develop a much more authentic equations, the ab initio method is not a foolproof method. And that's why the researcher, we don't use this ab initio modeling method to predict the structure of a protein. We prefer homology modeling or protein threading. Protein threading is a much more authentic structure determining set, and generally we use the protein threading, and if not, then we use the homology modeling. We will discuss about protein threading later on. Okay. So it's a de novo modeling method. Obviously, it's a physics-based method because you have to use the as I've told you, have to use the physical and chemical properties, and of course, when you use the physical properties, you have to use the basic physics of that nature. That you have to maintain the amino acid at such a position so that they don't cause any steric hindrance. They don't overlap with other amino acid. They don't have this overlapping atoms, and all you have to maintain all those things. And after you maintain all those things, you're going to have a particular set of structure, and which after the structure refinement, they're going to give you the structure, and you have to assess the quality of the predicted structure. I'm going to teach you how to assess the quality of the of that structure and all. But sometimes these predicting this structures are really important for drug designing also. Why drug designing? Because when you are predicting the structure of a molecule, as I've told you that when we develop a ligand, we sometimes develop a ligand such that it not only that it should bind to this alpha, it's not that it has to bind to threonine or tyrosine or this phenylalanine or to lysine. We develop a ligand such that it binds to the alpha helix region of this protein, that it will bind to the beta sheet region of this protein, and inside the beta sheet region is going to have a much more favor to bind to this threonine rather than phenylalanine. Those might be the key, but sometimes these folds are really important to know, and not only for drug designing but also for other part, because it is seen that several proteins, suppose if a particular protein is present in your blood plasma, then it is going to have a particular set of structure rather than a protein which is present in the stomach environment, that's in the low pH environment. The structure of those proteins are going to be starkly different from the proteins which are present in the plasma. So by gathering the basic secondary structure, we can predict the placement or the role of a particular protein. Okay, now there are several servers which actually can help you to predict the structure of a particular protein. So we're going to start with the basic thing, and the basic thing is the Fastman and Chow structure. This is the most basic thing that people use. I've sent you a link. Simply click on that link and you're going to open up a particular set. Now suppose when you so this is a server. This server is actually developed by Chow and Fastman, and Chow and Fastman has developed this structure, and this particular server is actually used to predict the secondary structure of a protein. So whenever you upload a protein sequence, it's going to predict the structure. So let me suppose, okay, so this is a protein. So I've selected the what you have to upload the protein in FASTA format. What is the FASTA format? FASTA format means you have to give a greater than sign. See that you have to give a greater than sign. Then you have to give the name of the protein. You have to write the name of the protein. You can write anything. You can write your name even, but that's the main thing. You have to give a name of the protein after the greater than sign. And then from the next line, then from the second line, you have to give the whole sequence of the protein in one letter code. One letter amino acid code without any gap. For example, it starts with this MIAQQ, and this is the whole structure of the protein without any gap, and this is the greater than sign and the name of the protein. Okay, so this is the FASTA format. Now there are various formats for a particular protein, okay, but generally for research purpose we use the FASTA format very much. Okay, so what does they do? They actually predicted and develop a server that can actually help you to predict the sequence, or the not sequence but the structure of the protein. So since I have uploaded the structure, and when I click on the predict button, so they predict the structure. What is this? Now this red are the helix region. The red are the helix region. The green signifies the beta sheet. The blue signifies the turn, whereas the yellow signifies the coils. Okay, so this is the structure. MIAQQ, this is the sequence, and according to the helix server, this server, it predicted that this particular stretch will have a helix structure. This particular stretch is going to have a helix structure. This particular stretch means starting from alanine till valine. This particular stretch, this particular motif is going to have a helix structure. But again, they also predict that these structure MIAQQLA, this particular domain, it can form helix, it can also form beta sheet, but who will win? The final it says that MIAQQ, the structure till this part, they have a helix structure. Till this LLAYYFE, this has a beta sheet structure, and beta sheet is denoted by E. E means beta sheet structure. Again, this part is going to have a helix, whereas this D is going to be present in the turn. Turn means the turns. Turns means this region. See, this is a turn. This is a turn. This amino acid is present at a turn. Okay, what is this amino acid? I don't know, but this amino acid is present. These are the turns. This is histidine. So that these are the turns. Okay, suppose these are the turns. This is a turn. This particular area is a turn. Whenever a particular amino acid folds to give you a turn, this is a turn. Okay, these are the turns. Whereas these are the loops region. whereas this particular region is a loop region, and loop region, they don't have any proper structure. Okay, they can flutter around. These are the loop region, and this loop region are predicted by these are the coils. Okay, so like this, they actually says you and predicts the structure of the protein that you have uploaded, and finally it is going to give you the whole structure. I mean, what is the helix percentage? It's going to say that 74.8% of the amino acid, they have a tendency to form the alpha helix, whereas 47% of the amino acid, they have a tendency to form what should I say, beta sheet, and the rest of the 12.6% of amino acid, they have a tendency to form the terns. Okay, so Chow and Fastman is the most basic server that actually people use to simply take a look into the structure of the protein. And this is really required because not only required for the prediction of the structure for the drug designing part, but also for to look at the location and the localization of a particular protein, and also to see if that particular protein that you have, suppose you have a protein and you have found by performing the CT spectroscopy, you can obviously assume you can assign the role of that particular that protein, whether that particular protein is alpha helix protein or a beta sheet protein or a random coil protein. Okay, but that you are going to get the overall structure of a nature of that particular protein, but this actually allows you to look at the tendency of the amino acid also at the individual amino acid, not the overall protein structure, but at the individual amino acid level, that what is the nature of the amino acid in this particular protein. Okay, so they have their own mechanism of, they have how did they develop? They actually they actually looks into the structure of the RCC PDB website, and they take a look into all the proteins whose structures are solved, and they tries to find out that if they share the similar fold, suppose this particular fold, the KDDQVKK, this particular fold might be present in other proteins also, and how does this amino acid behave in other protein, and if this particular motif is present in other protein whose structure is solved, and in that particular protein this is where the amino acid takes part into the helix, the D takes part into a turn, and the rest of this take part into the alpha helix formation. So like this, it takes a reference from the solved structure and then gives you the idea and predicts the structure of the protein that you have uploaded. Okay, Shruti, did you understand?
Yes, yes.
So this is the most basic server, the Chow and Fastman. Now this is not absolutely right. Sometimes obviously you are going to find that it is obviously diverging a lot. It's not the structure, because these are all hypotheses. These are all predictions. These predictions are not 100% accurate. Okay, but this is the most basic server that people nowadays use, because it gives you an excellent chance to start your designing of, suppose you are designing a ligand, then it actually gives you a great chance to start your hypothesis, how to generate a ligand, what is the structure of the particular protein, to get an idea of the structure of the protein. This is an excellent start site. But apart from that, there are several other servers, and we're going to see, and from the next class we're going to take a look into each of the servers to see how these servers actually act, and how we can predict the structure of the protein. Not only the structure, there are certain servers that according to, with the help of the SAR, that is structure activity relationship, they also predict the structure of the protein, and along with it they also predict the activity of the protein, that what the protein will do, what should be the protein localization of that particular protein, and like this. Okay, okay, so okay, till this, okay, so we're stopping here today, and on the next class we're going to take a look into the other servers which can do much more than this Chow and Fastman. This is the most basic server. We're going to take a look into the other servers that are way better than this particular servers, and they give you a whole lot of other information also, rather than predicting the helix and nature also. Okay,
Okay, sir.
okay, fine. So okay, so that will be all. So do you have any question?
No, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, that will be all. I will send you the recording of this class, and I will intimate you with the mail. I will mail you the next class. Okay, the timing of the next class.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sure. Thank you then.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye, Shruti.
Okay.